The quilt lay in the pristine white garbage bin, its hand-stitched edges peeking out beneath designer wrapping paper and expensive ribbons. 6 months of work, countless memories woven into every square, tossed away like yesterday's newspaper. "Mom, I'm so sorry," my son Michael whispered, his face flushed with embarrassment as his wife, Victoria, continued opening gifts at her lavish baby shower. "Oh my God, it's the limited edition Gucci baby carrier," Victoria squealed, holding up her next present. "This is what proper gifts look like, everyone. No offense, Margaret." She smirked in my direction. "But we're giving our daughter the very best. Not crafts." I stayed silent, my fingers running over the calluses I developed while sewing that quilt. Each patch told a story: a square from James's favorite blue shirt before cancer took him, a piece from Michael's first Halloween costume, the corner of the blanket my grandmother had brought from Italy. 3 generations of love discarded without a second thought. "Look what Daddy sent." Victoria held up a gold-plated baby rattle. "Now this is traditional." I watched my son shift uncomfortably in his seat. Michael had changed since marrying Victoria Thompson, daughter of real estate mogul Harrison Thompson. Gone was the boy who'd helped me run our small bookstore after his father died, replaced by someone who wore designer suits and avoided mentioning our middle-class background. "The nursery is being featured in Luxury Living magazine," Victoria announced to her equally wealthy friends. "Everything's being imported from Paris. We simply can't have anything homemade, ruining the aesthetic." My phone buzzed, an email from my investment manager about the Thompson Real Estate Group's latest acquisition attempt. Victoria's father had been trying to buy the historic Carter building for months, not knowing the anonymous owner who kept refusing was sitting right here, watching his daughter throw away a family heirloom. "Margaret, dear," Victoria's mother, Diana, touched my arm with perfectly manicured fingers. "Don't feel bad. Not everyone understands our standards. Perhaps for the next gift, you could just contribute to their house fund? Even a small amount would be something." I smiled politely, thinking of the $2 million I'd secretly set aside for Michael and Victoria's dream house down payment. The house they'd spent months choosing, the one they told everyone was being funded by Victoria's trust fund. "The closing's next week, isn't it?" I asked quietly. "Yes, finally. Daddy's so generous with Victoria's trust fund," Diana bragged. "Though between us, the market's been tough lately. Even Harrison had to leverage some properties to make it work." I knew. I'd seen the desperate loan applications his company had been floating. Applications rejected by banks that happened to be my major investment partners. The party continued, a parade of expensive gifts and subtle digs at anything deemed less than luxury. I watched Victoria dump my coat back in the trash when she thought I wasn't looking, then whisper something to Michael that made him nod apologetically in my direction. That evening, in my home office overlooking the city, I made 2 calls. The first was to my investment manager. "Cancel the down payment transfer," I instructed, "and proceed with the Carter building acquisition. Tell Mr. Thompson his last offer is rejected." The second call was to Michael. "Mom, about today," he started. "The quilt was your father's idea," I interrupted softly. "Before he died, he asked me to make it for his first grandchild. He saved those clothes specifically for this." Silence on the line. I didn't know. "There's a lot you don't know anymore, Michael. Like how that bookstore you're now embarrassed to mention put you through college, or how your father and I built everything we have from nothing. Victoria just has certain expectations." "Yes, she does. Speaking of which, you might want to call her father. I hear he's having some financial difficulties, especially with that house down payment he promised you." "What? Mom, what did you do?" "Nothing yet. But it's interesting how quickly people forget where they came from, isn't it? How easily they throw away things that don't fit their aesthetic." "Mom, you have until tomorrow to get that quilt out of the trash, Michael. After that, well, Victoria might learn some interesting things about where that house money was really coming from." I hung up, touching the photo on my desk. James and me in front of our first bookstore, Michael on his father's shoulders, all of us beaming with pride over our simple success. The next morning, my security cameras showed Michael sneaking into the Thompson Mansion's garbage area at dawn. An hour later, he sent me a photo of the quilt carefully cleaned and folded. "I'm sorry," his text read. "Dad would be ashamed of me." Yes, I typed back. He would be. But this wasn't just about the quilt anymore. It was about teaching my son and his wife that true value isn't measured in designer labels, and I was just getting started. The following week, I sat in my office at Thompson Tower, a building I quietly acquired through one of my holding companies 6 months ago. Victoria's father, Harrison, didn't know his largest tenant was also his new landlord. He was about to find out. My assistant buzzed. "Mr. Thompson is here for the meeting about his lease renewal. Send him in." I turned my chair toward the window, letting him enter to an apparently empty desk. I must be in the wrong. Harrison's voice trailed off as I swiveled around. "Margaret, what are you doing here?" "Reviewing your lease application." I gestured to the chair. "Please sit." His face shifted between confusion and emerging horror. You own Sterling Properties, among other things, including the Carter building you've been trying to acquire." I smiled. "And, of course, your daughter's trust fund management firm." Harrison's expensive suit suddenly seemed to fit him less comfortably. "That's impossible. The trust is managed by a subsidiary of my company. Amazing what you can build from a simple bookstore, isn't it?" I slid several papers across the desk. These make for interesting reading, especially the part about Victoria's depleted trust fund. Color drained from his face. "How did you know that you've been lying to my son about the house down payment? That Victoria's trust fund was empty years ago on shopping sprees and failed business ventures?" I leaned forward. "I make it my business to know where my money is going, or in this case, not going." "Look, Margaret, surely we can. It's Mrs. Park in this office." I cut him off. "Now, about that lease renewal. Your rates are doubling." "That's outrageous. You can't." "I can, just like I can call in the loans on your other properties. The ones you've been using as collateral for that house you promised my son." Harrison slumped in his chair. "What do you want?" "First, you'll tell Victoria and Michael the truth about the trust fund. All of it. It'll destroy her reputation. Second," I continued, ignoring his protests, "you'll return everything Victoria bought with embezzled company funds, including that Gucci baby carrier she was so proud of. Please, they're expecting to move into that house next month." I pushed a final document across the desk. "This is a new lease agreement. Sign it, and I'll consider providing the down payment myself, under certain conditions." "What conditions?" "The quilt goes in the nursery. Victoria publicly apologizes for her behavior, and you all attend weekly family dinners at my embarrassing little house. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Almost as much as your daughter enjoyed throwing away my grandson's inheritance." I stood up. "You have until tomorrow to decide." That evening, Michael called. "Mom, something weird is happening. Victoria's dad just insisted we come over. He seems scared." "Really? How interesting." "Mom, what did you do?" "Let's just say some people need to learn the value of things that can't be bought in a store." The next day, Victoria and Michael arrived at my house unannounced. Victoria's designer outfit was gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her eyes were red from crying. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded. "All this time, letting us think you were just what?" "A simple bookstore owner. Someone not worth your respect." "Daddy told us everything. The companies, the properties, the trust fund. How you could have destroyed us, but instead, I'm offering you a chance to remember what really matters." I picked up the quote from my sewing table. "Your daughter's history isn't in some magazine spread. It's in these stitches, these memories, this family you've been so eager to distance yourself from." Victoria touched the quilt gently, fingers tracing the pattern. "This piece, Michael said it was from his father's shirt. The one he wore the day we opened the bookstore. Everything we built started from that moment. Not from trust funds or designer labels, but from hard work and love." "I've been horrible," she whispered. "To you, to these memories." "Yes, you have. I didn't soften the truth. But you can do better, starting with this little one." I placed a hand on her pregnant belly. "She deserves to know all her family's stories, not just the ones that look good on social media." Michael wrapped an arm around his wife. "The house will be yours, under my conditions, starting with dinner. Tonight, I'm making lasagna from your grandmother's recipe. The one with the cheap cheese Victoria refused to eat at Christmas." Michael smiled. Victoria blushed. I'd like to learn the recipe, if you'll teach me." "Well," I picked up my cooking apron. the worn one Victoria had once called embarrassing. That's a start. 3 months later, I stood in the doorway of my granddaughter Emma's nursery, watching Victoria carefully adjust the handmade quilt in the antique wooden crib, the same one Michael had slept in. The designer items were gone, replaced by a warmth no magazine spread could capture. Victoria had insisted on hanging photos of the family bookstore, including one of James reading to a young Michael. Next to it, a new picture showed me teaching Victoria how to make pasta from scratch, both of us covered in flour and laughing. The reporter from Luxury Living called again, Victoria said, turning to me. I told them we're going with a different kind of aesthetic, one that tells our family's story. I smiled, remembering how that same woman had once thrown away a handmade gift for not being prestigious enough. Dad's furious about losing the Carter Building deal, she continued. But he's actually showing up for family dinners now. Yesterday he asked for the recipe for your meatballs. Humility looks good on Harrison, I said, adjusting a blanket, almost as good as that apron he wore while doing dishes last week. The sound of the front door opening interrupted us. Michael walked in, carrying a familiar paper bag from our old bookstore. Look what I found while cleaning out the store office, he said, pulling out a dusty children's book. Dad used to read this to me every night. Victoria took the worn copy of The Little Engine that could reverently. For Emma? For all of us, I said softly, a reminder that what matters isn't how shiny the engine is, but the heart that keeps it running. We'd kept the bookstore, but with changes. Victoria now ran a weekly reading program for local kids, teaching them that stories matter more than status. Harrison had even donated his country club membership fees to fund free books for underprivileged children. The trust fund kids at the hospital were shocked when I told them I take the subway to work now. Victoria laughed. But you know what? I had the best conversation with our janitor about his daughter's college dreams. We're setting up a scholarship fund. Michael squeezed her hand. Remember when you thought Mom's financial advice was too simple? Now I have CEOs asking me how my mother-in-law built her empire from a bookstore. Victoria shook her head. The same people who used to mock her accent at parties. I touched the quilt one last time, feeling the memories in every stitch. Success isn't about what you have, I told them. It's about what you build, not just buildings and businesses, but bridges between people. Emma would grow up knowing both worlds. The power of wealth and the richness of simplicity. She'd learned that true luxury isn't in brand names, but in the warmth of family stories told around a dinner table. Speaking of building, Victoria smiled. Dad asked if you consider a small investment in his new community development project. Affordable housing, if you can believe it. Tell him to bring the proposal to Sunday dinner, I replied, along with that tiramisu he's been practicing. As I left the nursery that evening, I heard Victoria reading The Little Engine That Could to her belly, her voice gentle with newfound understanding. The designer bags in her closet were gathering dust, replaced by a well-worn cooking apron and flour-covered recipe cards. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what people value, it's teaching them to value what truly matters. In the end, that's the greatest power of all.